Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Drop in the Gloves. Nice Monday. We're into March, Tim. Very exciting. March 4th. How are you? How was your weekend? Anything exciting happen?
It was good. Nothing that exciting, but it was just really nice weather yesterday. I went to a little brewery and brought the dog and played some cards, and yeah, it was fun.
Played cards by yourself?
Have you played the game golf? You know
I
that
played
game?
golf, yeah.
It's fun. Yeah, I played it a whole bunch.
How do you play it?
You have 6 cards, and you just basically try to get the lowest score. And if you get 2 pairs, they cancel each other out. And you add up at the end when you flipped all your cards, and whoever has the lower score, like in golf, wins.
I've never played that.
It's fun.
Who did you play with? Who did you play with, Tim?
Not by myself.
He does. Tim hates talking about his personal life. It's so funny. I'm like an open book. Tim keeps it close to the vest. Why is that?
I try to. Yeah,
Why?
I don't have an answer for that. Yeah, just me. How was your weekend, John?
It was okay. Yeah. Yeah. People want to know, Tim. They want to know what's going on with your life, and you're not giving them anything. It's not fair. It's not fair for them. But my weekend was good. Yeah, well, went to Chicago, did a Hawks game. They got just worked by the Columbus Blue Jackets, and then that's about it. Nothing too exciting. Nice weather, like you said, but it's really hard calling a game when the team just loses all the time. It's definitely an art trying to find things to pick out of each game to say, oh, let's focus on this good thing. So we're making it work. There's some bright spots. Connor Bedard, he's pretty good. Very, very good. So we focus on
a lot of videos of him getting slashed and pushed around lately. But in the Avalanche game, in this game, he's just getting like whacked on the wrist, and no one's doing anything about it.
Because they don't have anybody who would do anything about it, right? They don't have a tough guy. Jared Tenorti, maybe, but he's not keeping anybody up at night. You know what I mean? He's not very intimidating on the ice. So I would do it. I said that on air because they show the Josh Manson clip of him slashing Connor, and he drops his glove, and Connor goes back to the bench and just boom, hammers the bench, keeps punching it. If I'm facing him, I'm slashing him all day long on the feet, in the wrists, everywhere. Why wouldn't you? It's just part of the game. So Chicago, I would hope, would address that next year. We'll see. They need someone tough like Ryan Reaves or Matt Rempe, one of these guys, because those guys, they keep you on your toes. And boy, oh boy, did we get some action out of them this past weekend. Friday night, New York Rangers, Toronto Maple Leafs in Toronto. The buildup was incredible. Revo, friend of the show, before the game, he was asked, would you fight Matt Rempe if he asked? He's like, I'm not saying no. I'm not running around and I'm saying yes for sure. I'm not going to duck this guy. And sure enough, they came together. Early on in the game, Ryan Reaves asked Matt Rempe to fight. And he said no. What did you think of that, Tim?
Well, the first shift that Rempe had in the game, he was kind of chasing the puck in the offensive zone, and he lost an edge in the Leaf zone by himself, and the crowd went wild. It was hilarious. And then fast forward a little bit later in the first period, the Rangers are up 1-0, and Reaves challenges him, and he says no. And when it was off screen on the live broadcast because it was behind the play, and when they talked about, oh, something's happening, and I would have figured it was Rempe asking Reaves, and Reaves saying no, not really paying attention to the score, more just like the young kid wants to make a name for himself. But it was Reaves asking, Rempe said no, and that makes sense. You don't want to give the Leafs any momentum or any chance to claw back into it. But Reaves and the Leafs gave it to him for the rest of the game until they ended up fighting later for saying no, right?
Yeah, you would think so. And you can tell that he had a conversation with his coach, Laviolette. Rempe did, because I think he would have said yes if he hadn't had that conversation. But you mentioned before you wrote down, sorry, not mentioned, we were talking before he even accepted the second Reaves challenge, he had to look to the bench and like get the okay. And I've had this before where players, it's so bizarre. I remember I fought Derek England one time, and I was in Buffalo, he was in Pittsburgh, and I honestly had to look past England to Bylsma. And I was like, let's go. Like, let him fight me. And I'm looking at Bylsma on the bench, trying to get him to let Derek England to fight me. And then finally he fought me and I beat him up. But it was they definitely had a conversation, and rightfully so. I think they should have had that. This kid was putting his face through the ringer, and when you look at who he's fought, like it's a pretty good, fight card of Delorier, Olivier, and now Reaves, and he's been in the league for less than 2 weeks. That's some heavy hitters. So he got the okay, and they eventually fought, but this was after, yes. He throws a huge hit on Lyubushkin. They're losing 3-2. It was the right time for them to fight, and he did his job. And lo and behold, the Rangers come back and tie it up, and they lose in a shootout. But I think it did spur on the New York Rangers to tie the game up and gave him a little bit of an energy. So that's exactly what he wanted out of that fight. But I like that he said no. We mentioned last show how George Laraque would always fight on his terms, and you can tell it takes the pressure off a player, Tim, when you have to get the okay to fight. I very rarely had that where I had to ask the coach if I can fight, but it gives you an excuse not to fight, which players kind of want sometimes. And then they can just focus on the game. So going in, he knew he wasn't going to fight unless the coach said so. So you can focus on playing the game. You can focus on something else. If you're just constantly worrying about that fight, you don't think about the game at all. And it makes it very hard to play. So I'm glad Laviolette did that because it frees him up to just focus on the game. But let's talk about the actual fight, Tim. Tell me how it started. You analyzed it, slowed it down. Talk about it.
Well, but actually, before we do that, I want to talk about the hit in the first period.
Oh, yes.
Because Rempe threw a big hit on Lyubushkin, and who left the game
back.
with
Welcome back, Ilya.
Right, who left the game with a head injury, didn't come back. Keefe was not happy about it after the game. He commented about the Reaves fight having something to do with it. People are saying Rempe left his feet, that it was kind of a dirty hit. What are your thoughts on it? Because there was no call or anything like that.
It's a clean hit. It's a perfectly fine hit. People are dumb. I don't know. It's a perfectly, you can leave your feet a little bit after contact. That's fine. That's natural. Right. You're exploding into the hit. Like at the point of contact, he was still on the ice. So great hit. Like crushed a guy. Like absolutely demolished him. Lyubushkin he goes from being like 2 feet wide to being like 6 inches wide. He just gets pasted onto the boards. Clean hit. Absolutely monstrous hit.
And not to blame the victim, but you put yourself in a bad spot when you're making the play. Like, aren't you supposed to go up against the board? He's like 2 or 3 feet from the boards, which is just the worst place because you're just going to get tossed into it. And you're going to go angled in. It's not like you're going to stay upright when you take a hit like that. Like you're supposed to get up against the boards if you see a guy coming like that after you make the play, which he could have done, but he didn't do. So whatever.
And now he's out. Good for him. But yeah, he buried him. And then the response, I don't think this was the response to the hit. And then back to Sheldon Keefe. Like, just shut up, man. Like you come off so whiny when you do this.
He does.
Like, it's just, I'm surprised he's still a coach in the league. It's fascinating to me that he has been fired. But anyways.
Well, he's going to coach for the rest of as long as he wants to now, even if it's not with Toronto, just because of all the games that he's won. You're
probably right. And it's just, he's got the Galchenyuk effect.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into the fight. So Rempe finally, he looks at the bench, gets the okay, and they start tossing. And one of the things that everyone said right away, even, during the fight, is that it was the adjustments he had made since his last 2 fights with Delorier and Olivier were noticeable. He definitely had a different approach for fighting Reaves. What did you see?
100%. And I don't want to take any credit for this, even though we have talked and on Messenger. So there has been some communication, but he did look more composed a little bit. He wasn't rushed. He was more patient with his punches, and he did have a better grab, albeit he had a better attempted grab. Where he grabbed his shirt and his jersey was good. The spot was good. The actual grab itself is terrible. Because you look at the fight, Reaves backing way off, the jersey's stretched out, there's no control there. And it's hard to fight someone who has that much movement. And you can see Ryan knows what he's doing. I don't know if he has the collar of his jersey purposely extended or loose, or he has some elastics on it, because it was stretching out so far, Tim, and Matt Rempe could not get a decent grab on him or control him, and Ryan uses this to his advantage the whole time. You can't reach him. He's pulling way far back, and you're just stuck in it, and Rempe just has to do some jersey jabs every now and again, but it's unfortunate because he does reach, he just doesn't grab him in the right spot. And I was talking to Tim before the show. I don't know if I always grab the guy's undershirt or if I grabbed his shoulder pads or whatever it is. But when I would grab somebody, I would grab him by the collar, or if I twisted his jersey up, I can't think of what I used to do. It's been so long. I would have control of him at some, not total control, but I could move him around a little bit. I could pull him in. I could uppercut if I wanted to. That's the advantage of being tall. You grab that guy and then you can move him around a little bit. It's easier on skates, obviously, but Remke had no control whatsoever. And you could tell that during the fight. He's trying to stand up straight. He's trying to keep his arm locked. He's trying to, keep him at arm's length. But Reaves he really did have a huge advantage because of all the room he had in his neck. He could move left, right, up, down. He could come in closer. So next time I want Matt to just maybe even re-grab during that fight. Take some time, grab your left and right, hold on to Ryan, work your grip a little bit better just so you can have more control, because having those long arms is such an advantage. I use that all the time when I fought. I very rarely got hit because I would grab him, I would lock him out. If I didn't have a good grab, I would re-grip. And then the fight gets going, and it's a good fight. I would say Revo won the fight overall, but Matt Remke, he skates away fine. He's not leaving battered and bloodied, and he's not, after the Olivier fight, you think this guy's going to have to go to the hospital. So it was a good fight all around. I think the crowd got exactly what they wanted. That was a heavyweight fight. Both guys were throwing punches. Both guys were aggressive. Revo at one point just waves off the referees. I love that. Everybody got their shots in. Everybody skated away. Everybody was healthy, and then they went on their way. It was a great result for everybody involved. Remke gets to say, I fought one of the toughest guys in the league. I survived it. And Revo says, I didn't duck somebody, because that's what I thought he was going to do. I thought he was just going to go about his business. The Leafs are going to win the game. Everybody's happy. It was a fantastic result. I think Matt will get better. I think he has to better grab, and then maybe his feet. There's a lot to work on with him. He's a moldable piece of clay right now. I think he stands up too upright to a point where it's like you're not getting as much power out of your punches. But not that I was a huge power puncher, but I'm going to work with him. We're going to coach him up. But yeah, great fight. Great fight by both guys.
It was a great fight, plus the lead up to it. And then you can see Reaves, he's going right to center ice, because they started near the bench and he's like, hey, follow me, right? And then they get into it. And I was watching, and I was rooting for Rempe, just being the young kid and just being like, okay, let's see what he can do. And at first it felt like he was winning, or at least he was holding his own really well and wasn't really landing a lot of the heavies, but he was jabbing a lot with his jersey hand. And then, but it was, doesn't bother a guy like Reaves. But then by the end of the fight, Reaves had just gotten a few good haymakers in. But credit for Rempe for staying upright. That was the big thing that I was kind of watching for, was just he didn't go down. He took the punches, and you could tell he had, because Reaves wanted to keep going. And he said to the ref twice, he was like, all right, I'm done. Are we done here? But I thought it was good. By the way, I didn't want to interrupt you and whatever, but it's Rempe. You keep saying Remke. And I know people laugh at it, but just practice.
I wonder why I do it. Because when I'm not, I know it's Rempe. It's just like a Freudian tick that I say the P and the K for some reason. Remke. Just sounds
like Demko.
I have a friend in town. Carter Oosterhuis or Oosterhuis. Yeah. I always end it with an N for some reason. And I know it doesn't. So I'm like, Carter Oosterhausen. It just sounds right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just something I do. I don't do it on purpose. I'm still trying to get to the Rangers. I'm still trying to get them to fly me in. How do I initiate that? Do I just send a proposal to the GM, to Drury, and say, hey, this is what I could do. $10,000 with accommodations for 1 week.
Do you would it make sense to do it now or in the summer?
Right now, I would love this. New York this time of year is beautiful. Oh, beautiful. It'd be so nice.
Well, you're 1 degree of separation from Laviolette and Drury. You can get their numbers today if you wanted to. So just do it.
Yeah, I know.
Why not?
Hey, Chris, I was thinking I could improve one of your players. 10,000. I think 10 might be even a little light.
Yeah.
Change this guy's career.
And the Rangers season.
And they Stanley Cups they might win because of me.
Do you think Rempe, does he see the playoffs?
Yeah. I think he does. They have so many injuries. Wheeler's not coming back. I think he definitely sees the playoffs, especially out east.
Yeah.
It's a heavier game mode. Is it heavier? I don't know. It seems to be getting heavier. Did you see the New Jersey Devils made a trade for some odd reason to get Curtis MacDermid from the Colorado? Or is he on Colorado still? Yeah. From the Avalanche?
Yeah, he was. Yep.
What do you think? Is that a reactionary trade from the Devils to try to keep up in the arms race there?
Well, the timing of it's strange. Like they needed this because this is why they lost last year. Not because they didn't have a fighter, but they didn't have the toughness response that a lot of other teams had in the playoffs. And then you get like Delorier brought in, and Lucius was brought in, and Reaves was brought in, and you didn't have an answer for it. And here we are in March 2nd, whatever the trade went down. And your season's close to being over. They didn't have a good weekend. They might be out of the playoffs for good. It's just, the timing of it seems weird to me. I don't really understand.
Doesn't it seem strange? And then poor Curtis MacDermid, he's just like Stanley Cup contender going to New Jersey. This stinks. No offense to New Jersey, but it's not, Denver, Colorado as far as living wise goes. I bet you the quality of life is a little better in Denver. I don't know. All right. We got a new sponsor, Tim. What's going on with this next segment? Very exciting.
Well, this episode is brought to you by Bet99, voted the #1 online gaming experience in Canada with same-game parlays, player props, flash bet markets, and more. I really like Zach Hyman this week. He's got 10 goals in his last 8 games. The hottest goal scorer in the league. It's not Matthews. It's not Reinhart. It's Zach Hyman.
Wow.
And he's scoring all those goals. Have you seen the chart of where he's scored from?
No.
He's at 42 for the year. Like 35 of them are in the crease. I'm not a joke. Like it's crazy what he's doing. He's got 42 in the year, like I said. So I would look for Hyman and the Oilers to stay hot if you're looking to gamble this week.
How do you gamble on a player?
Bet on him to score. Bet on him to get points. Yeah.
They do that on Bet99?
They sure do. You can parlay it as well.
Oh, I love the parlay. You know what I'm looking for this week? I like a week-long projection. The Los Angeles Kings. I'm all in on them. For some reason, I'm just thinking they're going to go on fire. They've won their last 2 this week. They play the Vancouver Canucks, who they just waxed last week 5-1. They get the Ottawa Senators, who are very beatable, and then they finish off with the Dallas Stars, which is a tough game. So the odds will be there for them. They're going to have a lot of upside for them this week. So look for the Kings if you're in the gambling mood with Bet99 to get some money. You know what I mean, Tim?
That's right. Elevate your experience with Bet99. Must be 19 plus. Play responsibly. Available to people in Ontario only. Bet99 is built by Canadians for Canadians. Speaking of Canadians, how about a Russian? How was that for a transition? This Kuznetzov thing. I need help making sense of this because I've read the headlines. I've read the articles. I still don't feel like I fully understand it. So maybe you can walk through it with me. But he came back from the NHLPA Player Assistance Program over the weekend and was immediately put on waivers. Yesterday, he cleared waivers, and Brian McClellan, the GM, said he spoke with Kuznetsov and his agent. Basically, the move is representing their wanting a change of scenery, and this is starting toward that. So currently, right now, Kuznetsov is on his way to play in Hershey for the Hershey Bears in the AHL, where he's probably going to be the highest salary player to ever play in the AHL. Does he actually play a game down there? Like, what do you make of the situation, and what's going to happen next for him?
What did Wade Redden make when he was sent down by the New York Rangers? Can you look that up real quick?
I will. Yeah.
Kuznetsov is making $7.8 million. That's a lot of money. So he could be, and this is not a conditioning stint. So I know guys have gone down maybe before for a conditioning stint but 7.8 is a big chunk. He's in the top 3% of guys in the NHL making that kind of money. But I don't know what is to be confused about. This is a guy who, and that's the thing, he hasn't played badly the last few years. So I don't know why Washington wants to get rid of him so badly. Maybe just the relationship in the locker room is fractured so much that they just want to wash their hands with him. They're just done with him, throw him on waivers. Maybe someone will pick him up. But now he goes down to Hershey and he plays his contract out for the rest of the season. And maybe they try to find a trade partner with him this year, someone who can use his services. But at this point, I just think there's so many red flags surrounding this guy. We saw what he did. Was it in the offseason 2 years ago where he was in Russia and he got in trouble with some videos he put on social media? There was some substance on a table, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And that was, they had a talk with him because they couldn't really get after him for anything. And now this happens. And then he goes in the player assistant program. I don't know. And then it's perfect timing for the Capitals because they don't want him on his team anymore. They're succeeding without him. They had a really good run. They made a good push for the playoffs. It's starting to, tail off a little bit near at the end of the season, but they don't need him on their team. They probably don't want him on their team. They don't want him around the young guys who are making strides in his absence. So you send him down to Hershey. He pays no escrow. Good for him. But do you think he reports, Tim?
That's my question. Is like, there's no way that, because it's hard for a player of that ilk and that caliber and making that much money to do it. But especially for him, it just seems like, I don't mean this as a knock, but he's a very prideful man, a little bit of an ego. Like I can't see him accepting wanting to play down there. But the article I read, I think on Daily Faceoff, was that he's going to be part of the Hershey Bears, run for the the Calder Cup, and they're one of the better teams in the AHL, and he's going to be there apparently. So I guess
imagine
we'll see
that he wins a Calder Cup. But I think the only real benefit of going for him is the money. He makes $7.8 million. And when you take off escrow, you're getting an extra couple $100,000 a paycheck. So it's kind of a no-brainer. The one thing that Russians have in their back pocket, they can just skip town and go play in the KHL whenever they want. Like they have that ability. I'm not saying everybody else does, but he obviously grew up in Russia. I'm sure he's played in KHL throughout his career. Yeah, he played with Tractor Chelyabinsk when he was younger. So he has those connections where he can just leave right away and get paid a ton of money to go back in Russia. So we'll see how it pans out. It's too bad. When this guy was clicking, he was a dangerous piece for the Capitals. But what are you going to do? It always seems like, not always, but lately, there's always a Russian in hot water. You know what I mean? They just can't seem to stay out of trouble. The last few years, it's been an issue with these guys, and I don't know what's going on.
Well,
hopefully they slow it down.
Is he untradeable? Like from just a desirability standpoint? Because why not try to move him and get something for him rather than waive him?
Well, I'm sure they kicked the tires on that, but he makes $7.8 million. He's 31 years old. He still has 1 year left on his deal, excuse me. And like I said, there's the optics of the whole situation. Are you going to bring in this guy who went to player assistance program? He's had the history with the drugs. I don't know, jeopardize your team to bring him in? He is a good hockey player. If it's just straight on the ice, this guy's good. He's very creative. He puts up points. He's a point-per-game guy. But there's just so much going on, so much baggage behind him. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully he goes down, plays well. He can get a chance next year. But I think we have seen the last of him in the NHL this season, at least. There's always next year.
Probably in a Capitals uniform.
Well, again, he could come back next year, I think, and play for the Capitals. I don't think he's burning any bridges. He's doing the right thing. He's going down to Hershey. I don't see any reports of him being a wet blanket and complaining and this and that. He's owning up to his mistakes, and he's going down there. So good for him. What did Wade Redden make? Did you figure that out?
Yeah. The average salary hit was $6.5 million. And I don't know which year he went down because it could have been either 8 or 6.5, depending on which year it was.
Oh, crazy.
But it was a lot of money. Yeah, I remember that. That was such a bad contract.
That was a big year for the. I played against him in the AHL.
Did you?
I'm almost positive I did. So,
because he was so good in Ottawa.
He was terrific, absolutely terrific. People in Ottawa, when you leave, the defensemen stink. Look at Carlson, Wade Redden. All of a sudden, you look at Chara. He left and he was garbage.
Yeah, so bad.
Awful.
All right, let's move on.
Let's get out of here quickly. Yeah, let's do some quick hits.
Well, for a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off and 0 delivery fees on their first order with DoorDash with promo code NATION25. Offer valid in Canada, subject to change. Terms may apply. Pettersson finally signed over the weekend.
Oof,
8 years, $11.6 million, just a shave more than Nylander. What did you think of the deal?
I think it's good for both team and player. I think he would have gotten more had he held out a little bit longer. I don't know what. I thought 12.5 was on the table. That's what the insiders were telling me. But apparently it wasn't. 11.6, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
It'll work out more favorably for Vancouver. I think that this is a team-friendly deal. And it will age very well for the Vancouver Canucks, especially when the cap goes up this year. And it will continue to go up for the next few years, forever. the 5% growth will be enacted. So this will be a good contract in 6-7 years. So good. I like it.
I think probably sooner than that. I think it probably is 2 or 3 years. It's going to be like, wow, he's making 60% of what he should be making if he had signed now. So yeah, I think it'll be a very good deal. Especially
this
he's
is
only
a guy
25.
who he could be an MVP candidate this year.
Yeah,
Like, he's a fantastic hockey player. So yeah, good for the Canucks to get it done. It's so interesting how hockey changes. Last year, we thought they were dead in the water. They need to sell everybody. Let's move on and restart this franchise again. Now they start to win games. Now everybody's saying, oh, this is great. They have all these guys locked up. It's fantastic. It's just a little bit of winning changes your perspective on things. And the Vancouver Canucks, they are a young team. And they do have all these guys locked up for a long time. So they could go on a decent little run here with these guys because they are good hockey players. But
is Ottawa next in that line? They're going to win a couple games and turn into a contender.
They could. They absolutely could. I don't see it, but the difference between Ottawa and Vancouver, I feel like Vancouver has the intangible guys. And I'm not saying Brady Tkachuk isn't, but guys who can do it all, who can score, who can just I like JT Miller. I know a lot of people don't like him, his antics, his attitude. I think he is an absolute just gem to have on your team. I like everything he does. I really, really do. So I don't know what everybody else says. And then Quinn Hughes. I think Quinn Hughes is, well, I know. The guy's a stud. Like, he's an absolute just dynamo. He might be the best Hughes. He honestly might. When it comes down to it at the end of the day. Jack's still putting up points like crazy. Do you think he's going to get 100 points, Jack? Him.
I don't have it in front of me. What's he at now?
I don't know.
I'm going to guess probably not.
He's still playing fantastic, but I like Vancouver.
That penalty shot with 2 seconds left.
I did.
After, what's his name, moved the net. So funny. He's got 57 points in 45 games. No, he's not going to get 100. Although he's got that pace, but he's just missed too many games.
Isn't that what I said was going to happen? He was going to get hurt?
Yeah, last year, I think did he have 99 last year?
98 or 99. But he only played 70-some games.
99 last year, 78 games.
You got to stay healthy.
It's going to happen again. It's about to happen
exactly. He's not getting 99,
again.
But yeah, he might. All right, what else are we doing here? Quick hits, Tim. These are slow hits today.
I know. The Predators have won 8 straight, and they basically, I wouldn't say cemented themselves, but they've gained a lot of ground in solidifying their second wild card spot. And I have to eat crow a little bit on this one because I said 2 weeks ago that I had no faith in this team, and they're boring, and I don't think they're that good, and they're going to go away in favor of the Minnesota or Calgary or Seattle. But Nashville said, hold on just a minute. 8 in a row. They beat some good teams, and it feels like we were saying before the show, these are probably going to be the 16 playoff teams. Barring any crazy runs, it feels like Nashville's going to be there.
Yeah, and they're beating teams that are ahead of them in the standings. They're beating the Colorados of the world, a big win versus Minnesota. They're beating LA, the Vegas Golden Knights. Like, they're on a pretty good run here. So could they be another St. Louis Blues from 2018 where they just catch fire and catch people off guard in the playoffs? Maybe not. But when you have the ingredients that they have, when you have UC Saros, when you have those good defensemen, when you have a solid core up front, like Ryan O'Reilly's still pretty stinking good, Tim.
Well, they don't have Ryan O'Reilly. Oh, wait, they do.
Yeah, like
crazy.
They got a pretty decent team. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they're going to make a huge run in the West, but again, if I'm sitting at the top of the Western Conference and I'm looking at teams that I match up against, if I'm Vancouver, do I really want to go play in Nashville? I don't think so. That would not be a place I'd want to go play. I'd rather go play LA. I'd rather go play Calgary, or you mentioned the Minnesota Wild. I don't know. It's good. Good for Nashville. I like this team. And this is after they just shredded their team. Matt Duchene, Tanner Jeannot left. They got rid of Johansson. They really did go into rebuild mode. And maybe they've changed the trajectory of their franchise a little bit. They're like, oh, we're pretty good. And they have those assets from trading those guys. So good for the Predators. I like it. They're winning some really big games, and I think it starts with UC Saros. This guy's a stud. Absolute dynamo in the net. Good for Nashville. 8 in a row. It's hard to do.
That's a lot. I had no idea they were on a winning streak at all. And I saw 8. I was like, whoa.
And then the Flames are nipping at their heels. They've won 5 in a row for Pete's sake. So it's not necessarily over, but yes, I agree. The West seems to be solidified. Nashville's up by 7 on the Flames. I know the Flames have 2 games in hand, but it's looking pretty solid in the West and the East at the top 8. Now they're just going to jockey for positions. Who's going to play who? We were bandering about before the show. Who would the Bruins like to play in the first round? Because right now they said second in the Atlantic. If playoffs started today, they would play the Toronto Maple Leafs. But playoffs don't start today. They still have to play 20 more games. If they win a little bit, if they lose a little bit, you could match up against the Panthers. You could match up against anybody. And if I was telling Tim, I said the Bruins, they want to play Toronto. Would you rather play Florida? Would you rather play Tampa Bay? I don't think so. So I think it's good where the Bruins are sitting right now.
Yeah, they're making me nervous. That actually brings us to our next point is that I saw this stat. I think Kevin DuPont, one of the Bruins writers, tweeted this out. Since the Bruins started off 9-0-1, that was their start to the season. Since that time, they've had 26 wins, 13 losses, and 13 overtime losses. That's 26 wins and 26 losses. That is, it's above 500 from hockey, and those points are so important. Because we talked before the show as well, is like they've won 3 games in their last 10. The Leafs have won 9 games, and yet they still have 6 points on the Leafs. And a lot of it is because of those overtime and shootout losses, which is as frustrating as they are just so important. But it just makes me rethink what I thought I knew about this team when I see that stat. It's like hot start, and then it's a middle of the road team ever since then, and you can't ignore that right now.
They need to revamp the point system in the NHL. They need to go to soccer style where you get 3 points for a regulation win. I firmly believe that. Yeah, it has to change. You have to give a little bit of a benefit and an incentive to win in regulation. I think that's so important for them to do that because now teams just play for a tie this time of year. Whereas if you were to get 3 points, I think that would change things quite a bit. And they're getting, it's just, yeah. Like when you look at regulation wins, Florida has 33. It's just, they should be, rewarded for that. It's just, but anyways, the Bruins, do they go to the shootout in overtime and playoffs? No, I don't know if this is necessarily a bad thing, but the writing's on the wall with this team too. I'm
choosing to believe that they're getting their bad games out from under them, and then they'll start to heat up and be a great hot team. There's another tweet that I saw too that was like the 3 years they went to the Cup with this in the last 20 years, 11, 13, and 19, they were a 500 team going into the playoffs over their final 20 games or so. Like it was very similar stats. So anything's possible when you get to the playoffs, but yeah, they're making me nervous right now.
So they're in second in the Atlantic. They're 6 points up on the Leafs. The Leafs have 2 games in hand. Where do the Bruins finish in your eyes?
I think they stay second, and it's because everything has gone wrong for us and everything's gone right for the Leafs, and yet you still have a 6 points on them. You know what I mean? So like, I don't want to knock on wood. It can't get worse than this, and it's just, so I feel like they're bad. Their worst hockey's behind them, and Toronto can't stay this hot forever. So I feel like, I think they'll stay where they are.
Your allegiance to this team is comical. It's very good.
I would say admirable to be honored.
You're supposed to have like this bipartisan look now that you're part of the media, but look at who they play in the next 5 games. Toronto, Edmonton, Toronto, Pittsburgh, St. Louis. Dangerous teams. They could easily lose 5 of those games.
They did great in that road trip.
Tim, they didn't play these types of teams 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago when O'Reilly got suspended, they played like Seattle and Tampa and the Capitals and like Calgary. Like they were playing subpar teams. I'm just saying this could
be
get
Edmonton in their building
in overtime.
So, whatever.
This could get tight. Let's check back on Friday because they play tonight, they play tomorrow, and they play Thursday. You notice I didn't bring them up in Bet 99 because they're going to go 0. That's the thing. They'll lose them all in overtime, so they'll get 3 of 6 possible points.
Yeah,
hanging around. All right, we got a big signing. New York Rangers locked up Jonathan Quick. Very exciting.
One of the cooler stories in the league this year. He's 38 years old and playing just great hockey. 1 year, $1.275 million for another year. And Shesterkin has really turned it around too in the last month. He's looked great basically since the holidays. And so now the Rangers are as strong as anyone in the league right now, and Quick's a big part of it. It's cool to see him get rewarded.
Yeah, he obviously didn't really work out with the Vegas Golden Knights last year. He's coming into New York, fresh start. He's playing great and got another deal out of it, so good for him. I like the Rangers. They're, again, another team who's playing really, really strong. I think the East right now is Florida and then everybody else. I think everyone is looking up at the Florida Panthers at this point, but the Rangers are right there. They're going to make some noise. I've heard some rumblings out of New York that they're going to make a push this year because the years are running out on this team to make a Stanley Cup run. They have to do something this season, but good for Jonathan Quick. 38, going to be 39. He's still kicking, still playing pretty strong. Just like us, Tim. We're still kicking, we're still putting out quality material. And we appreciate everybody for the support. I hope you have a good Monday. I hope you have a good start to your month. We'll see you on Wednesday, everybody. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to Dropping the Gloves with John Scott, a member of the Nation Network of Podcasts. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from to never miss an episode.